The sun had barely crested the ridge when Clara Red McAllister opened her eyes to a world burning gold and red. Her throat felt like it had swallowed sand. Buzzards wheeled overhead in lazy, arrogant circles. Wind brushed over the riverbank, carrying the stink of mud, sweat, and something more metallic, blood. She didn't try to move at first. The weight at her wrists told her everything she needed to know. Chains. Cold, rusted, and cruel. She was cuffed to a half-buried iron ring bolted into the roots of a driftwood tree, its dead limbs clawing the sky like bony fingers. Her boots were gone. Her dress, once the color of cream, was torn and stained. The sun stung her swollen eye. She didn't need to look to know who'd left her here. Judson Pike always said he'd make her regret crossing him. Well, here it was. Regret like a second skin. The river murmured beside her, brown and slow-moving, a snake too lazy to strike. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote barked. The high, nervous sound of it sent a ripple of panic up her spine. She struggled to sit, the iron pulling taut, slicing a new pain across her wrist. A sob scraped its way up her throat, but she forced it back down. Not yet, she rasped. Pain flared in her cracked lips. Her voice was barely more than wind. She blinked against the sun. Everything spun. If she passed out again, she wasn't sure she'd wake up. She didn't get to die easy. Not yet. Not until she made him bleed. That thought was bitter, but it steadied her. She scanned the horizon. No horse. No road. No smoke from a campfire. Judson had taken her far, too far to crawl back. She closed her eyes and tried to remember how long it had been. A day? 2. Her stomach gave a low, hollow groan. She tried to lift her hands, winced. Her wrists were raw, crusted with dried blood. The chain was bolted through a loop, rusted but strong. Her fingers moved instinctively over the dirt beside her, searching for anything. A stone. A nail. A bone. She found nothing but weeds and despair. The sun climbed. Time became heat and thirst. She tried to scream once, but it came out a cracked whisper that startled a dragonfly from a nearby reed. Clara laughed, a low, manic sound. "Damn you, Judson," she said aloud, and it felt good. "Damn you to dust." She thought about their first meeting. Dry Creek 4 years back. He'd swaggered into the saloon like he owned the floor, boots thumping, hat tilted, that roguish grin on his face. Girls flocked to him like bees to sugar. But he'd watched her, only her, as she poured whiskey for a toothless rancher. She remembered the way his fingers brushed hers as he handed over a silver dollar. "You ever dream of leaving this place?" he'd asked, like he already knew her answer. She'd been a fool then, looking for someone to pull her out of the mud. He'd promised her open skies and gold-dusted mornings. What he delivered were locked doors, bruises, and whispered threats when she said too much. She didn't know when the love had curdled. Maybe it never was love, just a different kind of chain. Her stomach turned again. She bent forward, vomited bile into the grass, and shuddered. When she sat back, tears streaked her cheeks. A noise caught her attention, just a rustle, but it made her freeze. Something moved behind the willows. Her hand clenched into a fist. She had nothing to fight with, not even a stick, but she would not go down easy. Not for a coyote. Not for a man. Leaves parted. A shadow shifted. "Who's there?" she croaked. Silence. Then a voice, quiet, low, almost apologetic. "You don't look dead." Clara flinched. The man stepped forward slowly, hands empty and low. He was lean, with a coat too big for his shoulders and a rifle strapped across his back. Dust clung to him like a second skin. His eyes were pale, gray-blue, unreadable, and his face held the calm of someone who had seen too much and didn't expect anything better. "Water?" Clara whispered. He didn't move. "You got water?" she asked again, sharper this time. He walked closer and knelt. From a battered canteen, he poured a few drops into a tin cup and offered it to her lips. She drank greedily, water dribbling down her chin, and then she choked. "Slow," he muttered. "You'll cramp." When she could breathe again, she studied him. "You here to finish what Judson started?" "No, ma'am," he said. "I don't know a Judson." "You're lying." "I'm not." "Then what are you doing out here?" "Hunting something uglier than coyotes." Her laugh was hoarse. "Well, lucky you. You found it." He looked at the chain. His brow furrowed. "Someone meant for you to die slow," he said. "No kidding. You got a name?" "Clara." He waited. "Clara McAllister," she said finally. "Though folks used to call me Red." "Jonas Clay," he said. "Used to be something." "Used to be. Don't much matter now." Jonas pulled a folding knife from his boot and leaned toward the chain. Clara jerked back instinctively. "I'm not gonna hurt you." That what Judson said? He paused. Then gently, you want to die out here or you want a shot at revenge? She stared at him. The wind picked up. A dust devil spun across the river, scattering reeds. Cut the damn chain, she said. The metal gave after a few minutes of scraping and leverage. When it snapped, she cried out, more in shock than relief. He steadied her as she stood. Her legs shook like a newborn foal's. Her body wasn't ready, but she didn't care. She would walk if it killed her. He handed her the canteen. Got a camp 2 miles east. You can rest there. I'll take you to town come morning. She didn't thank him. Not yet. Trust wasn't something she gave lightly. Not anymore. They walked in silence for a long while, her limping, him adjusting his pace. The sun blazed down, but clouds were forming on the edge of the sky, thick and bruised. Jonas watched the horizon with a frown. Storm's coming, he said. Let it. Don't figure we'll outrun it. She looked at the sky, then back at him. You really don't know Judson Pike? No, he said, then added, but I know men like him. That's so. They leave scars and don't look back. She nodded slowly, her breath catching. He didn't leave me because I betrayed him. He left me because I stopped being afraid. Jonas said nothing, but there was something in the way he looked at her then, like he saw not the bruises or blood, but something sharp beneath it all. Something unbroken. They reached his camp as dusk painted the hills in ash and fire. It wasn't much, just a tarp strung between trees, a small fire pit, a bedroll. But it was enough. She collapsed beside the fire, her bones aching. He handed her a strip of jerky. She chewed without tasting. They sat in silence while the wind picked up and lightning cracked far away. Thunder rumbled like a growl from a sleeping beast. You always save women in chains? She asked. First time, he said. Then why do it? He didn't look at her. Because no one came when I screamed. She watched him for a long time, unsure of what to make of that. Finally she whispered, well, I ain't screamin' now. He nodded once. Good. That night, Clara lay under the stars, her wrists still throbbing, her mind turning over the quiet stranger and the road ahead. She wasn't sure what waited for her, vengeance, justice, or just more pain. But she knew one thing, Judson Pike hadn't finished the job. And she'd be damned if she let him get another chance. The last thing she heard before sleep pulled her under was the soft, rhythmic sound of Jonas sharpening his knife. It sounded like freedom. Clara awoke to the hiss of rain against canvas and the smell of damp earth. The storm had come fast in the night, and now it settled over the landscape like a wet wool blanket, heavy and silent. Her muscles protested every motion, her wrists scabbed and stiff, but she was alive, and unchained. That was something. Across the fire pit, Jonas Clay crouched under the tarp, methodically oiling the lever of his rifle. His face was as unreadable as the sky. Quiet as he was, he never once startled her with his presence. He moved like a man who'd been born into silence and raised by ghosts. You watch me sleep? She asked, voice rough but clearer than the day before. Only to make sure you didn't stop breathing. Clara sat up slowly, wincing. Real flattering. You snore. She raised a brow, but a grin ghosted across her lips. Liar. He didn't smile. Just handed her a piece of jerky and a half-dried blanket. We move soon. Town's another 2 days out. She chewed slowly, the meat tough but better than nothing. Her eyes scanned the trees. This trail go near Dead Woman's Gulch? Jonas paused. Skirts it. Why? Judson's boys used to hole up there when they needed to vanish. Might still be near. He gave a single nod, thoughtful. You think he'll come looking for you? Clara stared into the fire. The rain had nearly doused it. He won't have to. News like mine don't stay buried long. Jonas refolded his rifle rag. Then you'll need more than my kindness to get to Dry Creek in one piece. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing. What's your price? No price. There's always a price, Mr. Clay. He didn't flinch. I don't ask for gold or favors. So what do you ask for? He looked at her, and in that silence was something harder than iron. A reason. The fire cracked between them. She studied his hands, scarred, calloused, the fingers of a man who'd drawn steel more times than he wanted to admit. He didn't wear a badge, but he carried himself like he'd once worn something heavier than a star. Lawman? Maybe. Bounty hunter? Probably. But there was weight behind his calm. Not the kind that made a man dangerous, but the kind that made him deadly. Why are you out here alone? She asked finally. He didn't look at her. Just pulled the tarp tighter around the camp. Same reason as you. Ran out of places to belong. That landed like a blow. Clara tucked the blanket around her shoulders and sat back. The silence stretched between them until the rain eased into mist and birds began to stir in the trees. She hadn't expected to care about this man. He'd been a silhouette, a stranger in the fog. But now, something about his stillness grounded her in a way she hadn't felt in years. They broke camp just after dawn. The trail was slick, the mud sucking at their boots, but they kept moving. Jonas didn't speak much, but he always seemed to know when to slow down for her or when to scan the trees. His rifle never left his side. Clara limped behind him, every step sending jolts up her legs, but she refused to ask for help. She'd spent too long being carried by other people's whims. No more. Midday brought them to a ridge overlooking a vast plain. Tall grasses rippled in the breeze, and wildflowers pushed stubbornly through the dirt. Jonas handed her the canteen without a word. She drank and stared at the open land. "Used to dream about places like this?" she murmured. "Freedom?" She nodded. "What stopped you?" She gave a hollow laugh. "Same thing that stops most women. Well, or the version of it you get when a man like Judson decides you belong to him." Jonas didn't respond, but the twitch at his jaw told her he'd known that kind of story before. "He told me once," she continued, "that if I ever tried to leave again, he'd make sure no one could put me back together." Jonas looked over the plain. "And yet here you are." Clara turned to him. "You really never heard of him?" "Judson Pike. I've heard the name. Killed a marshal in Elkhorn. Burned a church in Lead Hollow. Been dodging bounties for 5 years. That's the man." He adjusted the strap on his rifle. "You were with him all that time?" 3 years. At first I thought I could fix him. Later I just tried to survive him." Jonas gave a dry exhale. "You ever fight back?" Her eyes flared. "I left him. That's not what I asked." She hesitated. Then, quieter, "The night before he chained me by the river, I tried to shoot him." "Did you?" "Bullet missed." He laughed like I just told him a joke. Said I had grit but no guts. Then he knocked me out. Next thing I knew, I was tasting mud and waking up to buzzards. Jonas watched her for a moment, then nodded. "Well, looks like grit's still there. Maybe the guts too." Clara squinted. "What about you, Mr. Clay? You always this helpful to lost causes." "I don't see you as a cause." "Then what am I?" He met her eyes without blinking. "A woman with fire left in her. And I don't like watching fire go to waste." Her breath caught. For a second, the wind held its breath too. By nightfall, they'd made it to a crumbling old station near Widow's Pass. Jonas checked the perimeter while Clara set up camp, fingers trembling from fatigue. The shelter was barely more than a skeleton, rotting timbers and roof patches, but it offered shade and that was enough. As the fire crackled back to life, Clara asked, "You ever kill a man, Jonas?" He paused, then sat down. "Yes." "How many?" "Too many to count. Not enough to forget." "War?" "Some." "And the rest?" "Justice," he said, though he didn't sound proud of it. She leaned back on her elbows. "You still chasing someone?" His silence stretched again, but this time it broke. "There was a man. Years ago. Hunted him for months. He murdered a family in Colorado Springs. Left their little girl for dead. I was Pinkerton back then. We tracked him to the edge of the desert. I found him. Shot him. Brought back his body. The girl lived, but she never spoke again. He tossed a twig into the fire. I quit after that." Clara didn't know what to say. Instead, she pulled her knees to her chest and stared at the flames. "I tried to forget Judson," she said after a while. "Tried to convince myself I was stronger than what he did to me. But there are moments when I still hear him whispering. Like he's inside my head, waiting for me to give up." Jonas looked over. "He's not in your head, Clara. He's behind you. In your shadow. The moment you turn around and face it, he's got nowhere left to hide." She swallowed hard. "Then maybe it's time I stopped running." The fire crackled. Jonas leaned forward, his voice low. "If you want to see him again, if you want to finish this, I'll ride with you. Not because I owe you, but because you deserve to look that man in the eye and take back what he stole." Clara held his gaze. No tremble, no fear, just a slow rising fury in her chest that had been simmering for years. "I don't want revenge," she said. "I want to be free. And if that means putting Judson Pike in the ground, then I'll dig the hole myself." Jonas nodded once, slow and final. "Then we ride at dawn." They sat in silence, two silhouettes framed by firelight and unfinished business. The moon peeked from behind thick clouds, silvering the ruins around them. In that moment, Clara didn't feel like a victim. She felt like a match someone had tried to smother, and failed. In the distance something howled. Maybe a wolf. Maybe something worse. But Clara didn't flinch. She was done flinching. In the low light of dawn, the landscape sharpened into edges, rocks, ridgelines, shadows too long to trust. Clara sat astride a borrowed mare, the reins rough against her palms. Her wrists still bore the bruises of Judson's chains, but her eyes had changed. No more fog. No more hesitation. She stared ahead at the winding trail like a woman seeing it not for what it was, but for what it offered, a path back to herself. Jonas rode beside her, silent as always. He didn't need to speak. His presence was its own language. Protective, watchful, but never coddling. Clara appreciated that. Men before him had mistaken her for something breakable. Jonas had looked at her the first night and seen someone halfway through building herself back up from ashes. They kept a brisk pace through the canyon's throat, the walls rising like tombstones on either side. Above, a hawk circled, its cry slicing through the morning air. Clara squinted at the horizon. The closer they came to Dry Creek, the heavier her breath sat in her chest. "We'll cut through Devil's Hollow by noon," Jonas said, finally breaking the silence. "Quicker route to town, but it's narrow. Ambush country." She nodded. "Judson used to use it when he wanted to disappear. Then he might be expecting you to avoid it. Which is exactly why we shouldn't." He gave her a sidelong glance, something close to approval in his expression. "You sure you're ready?" "No," she said, "but I'm going anyway." They rode hard for hours. Heat settled on their backs like a second skin, and the trail narrowed into a series of switchbacks along the edge of the cliffs. Clara felt the tension coil in her spine. Every rock slide, every rustle in the brush could hide a rifle barrel. Then, as they rounded a bend, she caught the glint of metal, too smooth to be stone, too deliberate to be chance. "Jonas," she said, reining in. He didn't ask. He just stopped, scanning the rocks above. Clara dismounted, ducking behind a boulder. Jonas followed suit. His rifle slid from his shoulder with practiced grace. 3 figures emerged on the ridge. Shadows first. Then the low scrape of boots on gravel. A familiar laugh echoed down the canyon walls, a harsh, grating sound that made Clara's blood run cold. Judson's men. She knew the one in front, Corky Tate, Judson's bulldog. Mean, heavy, and always grinning like he knew a secret you didn't want to hear. He held a shotgun like it was part of his arm. "Boss says to bring the girl back," he shouted. "Alive if possible. Quiet if not." Clara stepped from behind the boulder before Jonas could stop her. "Corky," she called, "tell Judson he should have done the job right the first time." He squinted down at her. "Well now, Red. Thought you'd be bones by now." She raised her chin. "You always were bad at finishing things. Judson wants to see you." "I bet he does." Corky motioned to the others. "All right, boys. Let's go nice and easy." Gunfire cracked. A sharp, clean report from Jonas's rifle dropped the man on the left before he could blink. Chaos erupted. Clara dove to the side, grabbing the revolver at her hip. She fired twice, wild, high, but enough to make the remaining man scramble for cover. Corky fired back, buckshot splattering rock inches from Jonas's shoulder. Jonas stayed low, calm, efficient. He took another shot. Corky grunted, spun, then hit the dirt. Silence followed, broken only by Clara's ragged breathing and the lingering echo of gunfire ricocheting through the canyon. She stood slowly, dust rising around her like smoke. Her hands shook. Jonas approached, checking the bodies without ceremony. 3, he said. "There'll be more." Judson never rode with fewer than 6. Jonas nodded. "We move fast." They mounted again. Clara didn't look back. She couldn't. Her body was still shaking, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was something else, something fierce. By the time they reached the edge of Devil's Hollow, the sun had dipped toward the western ridge, casting gold across the scrub and stone. They found an abandoned cabin. More of a shack, really, with one wall half collapsed and the roof slouched like a drunk man's hat. It would do. Inside, Jonas tended his rifle while Clara paced. Her nerves danced beneath her skin. Every creak of wood felt like a footstep. Every gust of wind carried the sound of Judson's voice, imagined or not. Finally, Jonas broke the silence. "You did well back there. I shot wide. You didn't freeze." Clara sat heavily on a broken crate. "I wanted to. My hands wouldn't stop shaking." "That'll pass. I thought I'd feel something. Shooting back. Fighting. But all I feel is unfinished." Jonas nodded slowly. "That's because it ain't done." She stared at the floorboards, dust curling at her boots. "I used to think leaving him would be enough. that if I could just run far enough, fast enough, I'd outrun the damage. Jonas leaned back against the wall. Doesn't work that way. No, she agreed. It doesn't. She looked up. Do you ever stop feeling broken? He hesitated. Then, no. But you learn to carry it better. Doesn't rattle so loud after a while. Clara smiled faintly. That the truth or just something you tell yourself to keep going? Both, he said. Later that night, as the wind died and the world stilled, Clara found herself watching Jonas in the firelight. There was a scar near his temple, thin, pale, almost invisible unless the light hit it right. She wondered who had given it to him and why he hadn't killed them faster. Why'd you really help me? She asked. He looked over. I told you. You said you heard me scream louder than your demons? I did. Not a lot of men would have listened. I ain't a lot of men. She folded her arms. You ever think about settling down? He huffed a laugh. Only when I wake up from nightmares. Sometimes I think about a cabin. Creek nearby. Books. Coffee. No ghosts. And? Then I remember who I am. She nodded. Yeah. Me too. They slept lightly, weapons near, and when dawn came, it brought with it the unmistakable sound of hoofbeats. Jonas was up in an instant, rifle in hand. Clara rolled off her bedroll, drawing her revolver, heart thudding. A single rider approached, a scout, moving careful and slow. Clara watched from the shadows as Jonas took aim. Wait, she whispered. I know him. The rider dismounted, hat low over his face, hands raised. Clara, he called. It's Jim. From Dry Creek. She stepped out. Jim? You still running messages for the postmaster? He nodded quickly, glancing around. Judson's looking for you. Got folks whispering you crawled back from the grave. He's got men watching every trail. Then why are you here? Wanted to warn you. He's holed up in the old church on the edge of town. Waiting. Clara's eyes narrowed. That where he took me that first time? Same one. She felt the bile rise in her throat. That church had once been a sanctuary. Now it was a tombstone waiting to be carved. Jonas stepped beside her. You want to avoid him, we swing south, wait until... No, she said. He picked the place for a reason. He wants me to come to him. He's drawing you in. Then let him. But this time, I won't be the one bleeding. Jim nodded nervously. He's got at least 5 men. Maybe more. Then we'll bring 6 bullets each. Jim swallowed hard, then turned to go. When he disappeared over the ridge, Clara stared at the fading sky. Her hand clenched around the grip of her revolver. I'm not the same woman he chained to that riverbank, she said. Jonas loaded another round. No. You're the one walking toward him. Clara smiled, slow and steady. And I'm bringing the storm. Dry Creek had changed in the years since Clara last rode through it, but not enough. The wind still dragged dust through the crooked Main Street. The saloon leaned against itself like it was drunk from its own history. And the church, whitewashed once, now gray with rot, sat on the northern edge like a judge waiting for its gavel. That's where Judson Pike waited. Not hiding. Not running. Waiting. Jonas rode a few paces behind her, quiet as always, but his rifle was loaded, his eyes scanning every rooftop and alley. Clara could feel the weight of his presence. He didn't try to lead. Didn't try to protect her from what she was walking into. He just stayed close enough that if she fell, she wouldn't fall alone. Clara's boots hit the boards outside the old church, her steps hollow and deliberate. The doors were cracked open. That was his style, showy, theatrical, inviting her in like a spider setting the table. She paused, hand on the revolver at her hip. Her fingers didn't tremble. Not anymore. You don't have to go in first, Jonas said behind her. I do, she replied. He didn't chain you. Pause. Then a nod. She pushed the door open. Inside it was colder than it should have been. The altar was dust-covered, the pews askew and broken in places. Candles flickered where no one had lit them. Judson sat in the second row, arms stretched along the back of the pew like he was lounging in his own private theater. He wore his Sunday hat and that same grin, the one that used to charm saloon girls and send bullets flying. Well, he drawled. Ain't this just a resurrection? Clara stepped inside, the doors groaning shut behind her. You always did have a flair for the dramatic. Judson stood, slow and lazy, the way a snake uncurls before it strikes. You look good for a corpse. Guess the river didn't keep you after all. You should have stayed gone, she said. I could say the same for you, he replied. But I reckon we both got old habits. She glanced at the stained glass behind him, shattered in places. Light filtered through in fractured colors. For a moment he almost looked holy. Then he moved and the illusion broke. He stepped toward her. She didn't flinch. "You remember our wedding?" he asked. "Right here. You in that blue dress. Me drunk and promising things I didn't mean." Whole town watched. "I remember," she said. "You said I was the only thing that made you want to be better." He smirked. "I lied." "I know." A slow hand dropped to his belt, near the revolver. Her fingers itched to move, but she held still. He wasn't stupid. He was many things, cruel, vain, petty, but not stupid. "You came here for something," he said. "Closure? Revenge? Or you just want to see if you can outdraw me?" "I came to finish it. You and your pet bounty hunter think you can stroll in here and clean up my name?" "No," she said. "I came to bury it." He laughed, low and mocking. "You got fire, I'll give you that. Always did. That's what I liked about you. You were wild in all the right places." She stepped closer. "And you were rot in all the wrong ones." He moved fast. Not a twitch, an explosion. His hand snapped to his gun, drawing quick and smooth. But Clara had already drawn. 2 shots cracked. His bullet hit the wooden beam behind her. Hers caught him just below the shoulder. Judson spun, staggered, and fell against the pew. His gun clattered to the floor. Clara stepped forward, weapon still trained on him. He was wheezing, blood soaking through his shirt, eyes wide with disbelief. "You always were too proud to believe I'd do it," she said. He coughed. "You think this changes anything? You think you walk away clean?" "I don't need to walk away clean. Just alive." Footsteps echoed behind her. Jonas entered, rifle raised, sweeping the room. "He alone?" Clara asked without looking. "Yeah. 3 of his boys took off when they saw me coming." Judson laughed again, blood bubbling at the edge of his mouth. "They ran? Cowards." "No," Jonas said. "Survivors." Clara walked to the altar. She reached into her coat and pulled out a set of old shackles, the same ones that had bound her at the river. She dropped them at Judson's feet. "You know what it's like?" she asked. "Waking up to birds waiting to eat your eyes? You left me there like a dog." Judson grinned, teeth red. "Should have stayed down." "I didn't." She turned away. "He's yours now," she told Jonas. Jonas hesitated, then moved forward. He hauled Judson upright, chaining his hands behind his back. "You're under arrest," he said simply. Judson hissed a laugh. "For what? Being too good at loving her?" Jonas said nothing. He just yanked the chains tight. Outside, the townspeople had begun to gather. Word had spread, like it always did in places like Dry Creek. They whispered when they saw her. Stare. Judson had painted her as dead or worse. And here she was, upright, alive, eyes like steel. Jonas led the outlaw into the square. The sheriff, old and tired but not blind, stepped forward. "You got him?" he asked. Jonas nodded. "Alive." The sheriff looked at Clara. "You want a trial?" She shook her head. "Just truth." He nodded. "We'll put it on the record. He'll hang." Judson smiled, blood on his lips. "You think a rope's gonna scare me?" "No," Clara said. "But the waiting will." The sheriff took him. Clara stood there a long time after the wagon rolled away. The dust settled around her boots. The wind tugged at her hair. Jonas waited by the saloon, letting her have her moment. When she finally walked to him, he handed her a tin cup. "Coffee. Hot. Bitter." She drank in silence. "You did it?" he said. "No," she replied. "We did." He nodded once. "You ready to leave?" "Soon." "You know where you're going?" She looked down the road. It stretched toward the horizon like a promise with no details. "No," she said. "But for the first time I get to decide." Jonas studied her for a moment. "You ever need a trail partner?" She smiled. "I know where to find you." He tipped his hat. They rode out at dusk, side by side, not speaking. They didn't need to. Behind them, the church stood quiet again, its last sermon spoken in gunfire and blood. Ahead, the road unfolded like a clean page. Claire didn't look back. Not once. She wasn't riding away from something. She was riding toward something new.